This UCSD TV program is presented by University of California Television. Like what you learn? Visit our website or follow us on Facebook and Twitter to keep up with the latest programs.
My favorite moment in this opera, the duet between Arden Scott and Winnie Flato. The old voice teacher sitting at the piano. This piece is very special to everyone that's in this industry because there's some moment or moments that just relate to your life. And it's a very special piece. It really is.
We practice. Tomorrow practice some more. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes.
Obviously, as a mezzo-soprano, she was one of my greatest mentors who I never had met in my life. Just the nicest person. I mean, nice is just not such a great word because it's so generic, but she really sincerely is nice, like kind and good and empathetic and so helpful to all the singers on stage. You can tell that she's really wanting the best for us and wanting us to do well, and so supportive.
I am so thrilled to be welcoming Flicka today and having a little discussion with her. So let's get to it. This is your first time with San Diego Opera.
Yes, it is.
Now you have sung in San Diego before, correct?
Yes.
And in what regard?
You know, I'm at that stage of my life when I'm not sure where I've been. But I think I did a recital in the theater.
Balboa.
Aha. And I think I performed at one point with the symphony
Probably
years ago.
In the Symphony Hall, do you believe? Or maybe even our Civic Theater?
I don't remember.
That's all right, that's all right. But so how are you finding your first experience with San Diego Opera?
I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that because you're here and you're here. I went to Butterfly the other night when I first arrived, and I was so impressed, not just with the singing, which was extraordinary, and the performance, and the orchestra, and the chorus, but I was impressed so much with the public, because it was something you don't see that much. This incredible enthusiasm. It was completely sold out. There were all generations there, which I found exciting, and I felt this is a beloved company. Mm-hmm. This is a really beloved company, and I know vaguely what you've been through, but I don't know any of the details. But whatever happened, if it's brought you to this place, it's fantastic.
Great.
And as an artist, being welcomed by you and the family at the Opera House has just been absolutely wonderful. So it's a real gem. It's something to be very proud of.
Thank
and
you.
I think you are.
We all are, absolutely.
Yeah.
I will say that is true. I think, as a new leader with the organization, we do feel like a family, and I think a lot of companies say that, but I really feel like it's true here. And I feel like the community is so supportive and so energetic, and something that's a real asset. So we'll probably be able to welcome you back. Yes.
Well, okay. Well, we'll see.
We'll see, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So you first officially announced your retirement from the stage in 2011, I believe.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, I read that somewhere in Houston.
In Houston.
In another of Jake's works, right?
Yes.
Dead Man Walking.
Yes.
So how's retirement going for you?
It's great. The key to my retirement is, I have a quote, it's say yes to the dress. Just say yes. And I wouldn't have had this fun if when Jake and Terrence called me to ask if I would be part of Great Scott, I think it took maybe 4 breaths before I said yes. And I feel so blessed. It's at this point in my life and my career, it's a little bit like a birthday present, a Christmas present to be part of it. And and I get excited by all the young singers and what's happening, and I'm so deeply impressed with the quality of singing. And I've heard singing now for 45 years, starting at the Met, some pretty darn good singers.
You've worked with a few.
I've worked with a few, and I think the voices are incredible. I think the artistry is extraordinary. So I wouldn't probably be doing this. I might be playing golf somewhere, and this is fun.
It's better than golf.
This is better than golf.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's a good way to spend retirement, I believe. Yeah.
So I've loved it.
So
Thank you.
good, excellent. So what else? Since that time, what else have you sung recently? Because you've actually been doing other work besides Great Scott.
Yes, I did a wonderful opera by Ricky Ian Gordon called A Coffin in Egypt. My uncle, I have a wonderful uncle Freddie, who I'm sort of named after, and he said, "Are you doing that cemetery work again?" But it was a wonderful piece about an old Texas lady in the town of Egypt. And the town of Egypt in Texas is a crossroads. That's about it. But it was very near where Horton Foote lived, who wrote the play. And I played a slightly bitter 92-year-old lady who's looking back on her life. And it wasn't that much of a stretch. And
I think it's a stretch. Bitter, absolutely.
I loved it. It was just fascinating. And I love Texas. We've talked about Texas.
Yep.
I just love those live oak trees, and I love Texas. So this woman actually sort of had the equivalent of a salon in her day, which was very, very unusual. But I did at one point want to contact the family, because it was a true story, and asked if it would be all right to write a letter to the granddaughter of the woman whose life story it was. And I got back the message, said, "If I saw Horton Foote, I'd blow his head off." So it wasn't exactly a complimentary story,
Right.
but it was.
I guess you got your answer
I
there.
got my answer.
Right.
So that was fun. And then lots of fundraising for a group that I just adore. It's called the YMCO, Young Musicians Choral Orchestra, and it's a youth program through music that takes kids at 10, and through intensive music training, 8-week summer program, our goal is to get them into university, college, conservatory, and we've had enormous success.
Fantastic.
So I do a lot of fundraising and work for them and sing with the kids.
Now, is that the organization that I was lucky enough to see perform at the Opera America Conference?
That's right.
It's an amazing performance. Yeah.
And some of those kids now that we were invited to perform at the Opera America
National Conference.
And some of those kids now, we have a girl that just received a full ride at Oberlin, and that's $260,000.
Amazing.
And the families cannot earn more than $25,000 a year, so it targets low-income kids. And we've just had this woman is the head of it. Her name is Daisy Newman, and she's extraordinary. She was a great soprano, a great favorite of Lenny Bernstein, and she's just put her heart and soul into it. And we get the kids into college, and
fantastic. So that's a good retirement.
That is
singing, and that is a very good retirement.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So Coffin in Egypt, where was that performed?
That was performed in Houston, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and then we just did it in New York. We did a concert version in New York a couple of weeks ago at the Jazz Center.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I was the proudest because I went to the Mannes College of Music, and they had the Mannes Orchestra played for it.
Wonderful.
So it was kind of like a lovely,
nice cycle. Yes.
Circle.
Wonderful,
yeah.
wonderful. Tell us a little bit how Great Scott came to you. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I know Jake very well. Mm-hmm. I knew Jake when he was head of kind of communications and everything and publicity at San Francisco Opera, because we used to drive around to go to interviews. And
basically what Edward does for us, I think, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just a labor of love. So we spent hours in cars going places, and one day he came and he said, I write songs, and I had no idea. And he played he had done arrangements of Irish songs, and they were so exquisite. I was just like, these are to die, Jake. You have got to show these to everybody. And I was in a production then with Renee Fleming was in it, and a lot of colleagues. So he took his work to all of them. And then Lotfi Mansouri, the head of the company, engaged him to write Dead Man Walking with Terence McNally. And the rest is history. That was 15 years ago, or
amazing.
More than that.
It's amazing.
And it's Dead Man Walking. There's probably not a corner of the world where it isn't in production somehow. It was just this amazing piece. And I think Jake is he's kind of like the Vesuvius erupting.
Which those of you that will come see Great Scott, you will see.
You'll know all about that. There was so much talent there and so much gift that it was just a question of when it was going to come out. And he's an extraordinary composer, and he's an extraordinary human being. He's a great man of letters. He's beautifully educated, beautifully self-educated. He's a beautiful human being. He treasures every part of his existence and is grateful for it. And he kind of amazes me, because when I remember sitting at the first orchestra rehearsals of Great Scott, and thinking, where did Jake, everything that kind of comes to be through his music. So Great Scott was, I think, conceived as an opera that was going to be for Joyce DiDonato, who is a dear friend of his and of Terence's, and probably one of the greatest artists of our time. And they put their heads together, and Terence and Jake are a pretty magic combination, and so it evolved from there. And Jake has repaid me so many times for believing in his work that I never expect to be cast in anything or asked. I only was a little disappointed I wasn't cast as the whale in Moby Dick. Only slightly. I forgave him that. So when he called me and said, would you do this part of Winnie Flato, who is the owner of this opera company, I, as I told you, yes. And I just have treasured every experience, getting to be with beloved Joyce every day, getting to be with Jake, and now with this extraordinary cast. I was saying to David that is it different being with a new cast? And I said, no, it's like being part of the greatest opera that I spent my life in, which was The Marriage of Figaro. It's translated because this is a story of great people, great, very real people, very true people, very honest representations of people, and so is The Marriage of Figaro. And it's a thrill for me to see Jake's work translating to sort of to everyone. It doesn't just belong to one person, and it's been extraordinary. And this girl, Kate Aldrich, our jaws are dropped. She's amazing. Yeah. It's what you all are just going to love this opera. I can't tell you. The biggest complaint that we had of it was that the public had there were too many laughs. Yeah. But they're real laughs. They're touching, and it's really us. It's opera singers. It's about our world, but as in everything, our world of being opera singers is everybody's world, because we're just people.
It does. We find ourselves often in opera chuckling in a comedy, and maybe smiling, but really laughing out loud is rare. And you really laugh out loud in this. So I mean, the jokes really deliver, and then you turn around very quickly and you're sort of filled with tears. So it's just the emotion turns on a dime, and it's very, I think you hit on it clearly when talking about the parallels between this and La Notte di Figaro, because both of them do really require real expression of emotion. Yeah. Not artificial in any way, and I think that's why this works so well. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. As much as Jake had Joyce in mind, clearly he had you in mind with Winnie, because I think it's written for you. It's written for your voice.
Oh, and Jake is amazing in doing that. And every little scene has been like a gift, really. And I've loved it. I've loved being part of his operas so much. In many ways, it's been a chance to examine different women in my life. In Dead Man Walking, it was to examine a mother's relationship to a child when you can't control the circumstances, or when you've made choices that are not good for your own children, and to be able to look at that in an opera that 3 Decembers, that one of his pieces I did, I got to see being the retired actress, impossible, having been so difficult with her children, and what made up her story, because there's behind everybody there's a story, and that's what's so wonderful about Great Scott, is that we're really seeing the story, people's story, their life story.
You're on stage a lot in this show. You're pretty much the whole first act, except for a scene, and then some important moments in the second act too. So it's kind of amazing that
I get to be you in this opera.
Well, that's true. She gets to be the person that runs the company, right?
Which I would never, in a million years, be able to even open the door to the office.
Oh, I don't know about that, but it's kind of a big thing for you, I think, right? I was surprised.
He's just given me wonderful.
And you just sound amazing. I mean, she sounds amazing.
Thank you.
And wait till you hear her next to Kate Aldrich, who she mentioned, who is a beautiful young mezzo-soprano. And so I think the two of you just sound. I was at part of the orchestra rehearsal yesterday, and it's really phenomenal.
When you add the orchestra too, we just add orchestra yesterday. I mean, your heart just stops, because Jake's gift of orchestration is amazing. If I do believe in him with all my heart, as you can gather. I really cannot think of one thing that isn't sort of perfect about him. It's a generosity that we're just so lucky to be part of. And we're lucky to be part of this generation because there are wonderfully talented young composers, and you as a public are not just more willing to engage in the process of new operas, but eager, you know, and I think that's exciting because I think there are a lot of subjects that we need to deal with as Dead Man Walking. That the best way to deal with them is through music.
I agree, absolutely. You mentioned Dead Man Walking. Did Jake write the role specifically for you in Dead Man Walking?
He did.
Yeah.
He had asked me to look at Sister Helen, and I just felt that I couldn't do it. I wouldn't have been able to handle it, and there were just too many fabulous young singers. Susie Graham was at the top. I said, please, thank you, Jake, so much. And then he asked me to play the mother of one of the victims, and I said, I'd love to be the mother of the convict, because also I work in a school, I volunteer in a school where this is the story of a lot of our families, is they're dealing with such daily nightmares of trying to exist with poverty at every surrounding them, that it was wonderful to be able to examine it. But Jake and Terrence wrote 2 incredible scenes, just incredible, and they translate to everybody that does them. They're just amazing scenes.
Well, it's a production or an opera, that a title we have not done here yet.
Yeah.
But Dead Man Walking will be coming here eventually.
Yes.
So everyone should know that. Jake is a favored son now in San Diego, so we're glad to bring that here.
Well, bless you for that.
Yeah, I think it's a very important work.
Yeah.
And it's had success now, as you mentioned, everywhere. And also, you may know, Opera Parallel in San Francisco did a reduction of it. So now there are large productions of it, small productions of it. It's being performed everywhere, and I think people find it incredibly impactful.
It is. Oh my goodness, it's just amazing.
So what are some other things you've done with Jake? You mentioned the songs, so you sort of uncovered Jake as a composer, and you worked. I know you've performed a lot of his songs.
I have. Oh, I mean, they're at the core of my repertoire. My favorite thing is my daughter Jenny is named after a wonderful Barbra Streisand song called Jenny Rebecca, which is about a little baby who's 4 days old. So when my daughter Lisa came along, I wanted to have a song written about Lisa, and so I asked Jake, and it turned into a little song cycle of 4 songs about Lisa, and I wrote the words because I know her. So that's totally at the core of my repertoire. Then I did Anna Madrigal. He did a production of Anna Madrigal with the Gay Men's Chorus. Loved that. I did 3 Decembers, which is a wonderful piece about this actress and her life. Hundreds of songs.
It's wonderful.
Yeah,
wonderful.
And I go to everything that he does, and it's just extraordinary. You know where he composes. I don't know if he's ever told you this.
No.
He can't compose at home. There's just too much going on. But he goes to this garage. It's in San Francisco, and it is the most miserable little space. You go through a kind of an old, there's some equipment in this garage. And then in the back, it's all soundproofed because the man who he rents it from is a drummer. And so it's got all this equipment around it. And you can't open a window because it's all soundproofed. And it does look out a little garden. And that's where he makes this magic happen.
Very interesting.
If you could see it.
Well, that's an interesting thing, because maybe that's shutting himself into there is how he creates what he creates.
I know.
It's really amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
He also, Jake, loves the voice.
Yeah, clearly.
And you have to love the voice because it's an imperfect instrument, and you really he does.
So-
and he writes every role for a specific voice.
Yeah, so he
You know.
really has something in his ear
Yeah.
when he conceives of the role. For those of you that are coming, I hope everyone, you'll see in this opera Jake writing 21st century, his own voice, but of course it's an opera about an opera. So it's an opera about a lost bel canto opera. So it's Jake also writing
Bel canto.
bel canto.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of in the style of Bellini or Donizetti. And I heard Jake speaking at an event, actually, I believe at UCSD earlier this year, and was asked about how he found his inspiration. Did he study Donizetti or Bellini? And he actually said, no, he studied Chopin. Did you know this story?
No, I didn't know
So
the story.
he said that when he was, and Jake was a very accomplished pianist, and when his piano teacher told him that Chopin was a great admirer of opera and loved Bellini and Donizetti. So when you hear Chopin nocturnes and you hear the right hand do all that beautiful filigree, that it's Chopin's way of speaking like Bellini or Donizetti. So it's now Jake speaking like Chopin, like Donizetti and Bellini.
Yes, that's
and
great.
I think it's, and when you think of that and you hear particularly Kate's, Arden Scott's first aria, when she
Yes.
comes in and sings that gorgeous aria at the
Yes,
beginning of the first act,
yes.
I think, oh, I sort of hear a Chopin nocturne in here, which
Yeah,
is really
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's also fun to hear him writing in that style. And there are many moments in the opera that are homage to the things that we love about opera. Sort of references to Rossini at the end of the first act, a reference to Der Rosenkavalier in the second act. So that's fun, right?
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It astonishes me how he does it and how it's the flow of it,
Yeah.
where it goes
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's just amazing.
So there are a few new members in this production, and there are a few returning members.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're doing new work, the opera premiered in Dallas in October. Several members of the cast, like Flicka, are returning to San Diego to have the second round of it, and a few of the cast are new for us here. One of them we mentioned, Kate Aldrich. So what is that like? What has that been like for you to sort of experience a new work that you're brushing off with some familiar faces and then some new faces?
Oh, it's always wonderful. I mean, for me, it's, as I say, it's a party.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the new faces.
Mm-hmm.
And this wonderful gal, Joyce
El Khoury also?
El Khoury,
Yeah.
there's a fabulous part in this of the Russian soprano. Or she's from Uzbekistan,
Right,
or wherever
right,
she's
right.
from. And with all the caricatures, but going one step beyond caricature to being real and finding out the kind of the dearness of it. So this Russian soprano has an aria at the beginning of the second act, which is the Star-Spangled Banner. Or as she calls it, the Starry Spangled Banner with variations. And I mean, it brings down the house. And it's, I can just see Jake and Terrence,
Having
glass
a ball.
of wine in
Yes,
hand,
yes, yeah.
having a ball with it. And it's better than caricature.
Yep.
It's real,
Yeah.
and it's that's been terrific fun.
Yeah.
They're wonderful, sort of the baritone role and the tenor role, and they're beautifully done by two young artists, and very, very funny.
One of them returning from the cast in Dallas, and one of them new.
And one of them new. The thrill for me is seeing that it translates to everybody.
Yep.
And that's what you want for a work. I remember when Jake and I wrote these songs about my daughter. They're very particular to me because they were stories from her life, but we really concentrated on making it so that it could be anybody's, and anybody how they feel about their children, And that's important. That's really important. And I love them just as much.
That's great.
You know, here.
Are you feeling like you're learning anything new about Winnie with this cast that you didn't, that's different from Dallas?
A little bit.
Yeah?
A little bit.
Winnie's the role that she's singing.
Learning more about, I think, wanting to go farther with the part of Winnie that feels this incredible affection for Arden. You know, both Joyce and this wonderful Kate are about the ages of my daughters, and so there is a motherly feel, and there's also there's a very specific decision that may take a long time to make when you're an artist, of how long are you going to pursue it if it's not going the way you want it to. And for me, how long am I going to keep going before it's really embarrassing? You know, so in a way, I kind of get to look at that, and there is not a speck of regret or bitterness. It's sort of like, I'll give you an idea. One time I went to a dinner party with Sam Raimi, and Zinka Milanov was still alive. And we went to this marvelous, very intimate dinner with some art historians, and they put on Miss Milanov's recordings at some point in the evening. And the way she sat, and I'll never forget the way she sat and listened to them, it was not with, gosh, I was great, this was fun. It was like watching her grandchildren. And it was the most beautiful sort of, yes, they were part of me, and they're little now, and they're making their own way, and that's what I think of a little bit with as I'm doing it now. That it's fighting for something. It's fighting for a company. So there is that aspect of it, and there's the professionalism that comes in, and it's a different professionalism than regretting that you couldn't sing the high D's.
Right.
That.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more of that in it, which is
Wonderful.
fun.
There's a really wonderful moment. So Winnie is runs the opera company. American Opera Company is the name of it, that the opera is being produced by, but was also the teacher, the music teacher of Arden Scott, who is this famous diva who's come home. And they're having a conversation in a rehearsal. The rehearsal is on a break, so everyone has left the room, and Winnie and Arden are having this conversation. And there's a moment where Arden picks up a jacket, a letterman's jacket of one of the chorus members, and she realizes that she went to high school with these people. So she's at the summit of her career, but she realizes, what would my life be like if I had stayed home, right?
Yes.
And that's a beautiful scene.
Yeah. It's and Wendy says, what would it have been if and he said, you would have turned out like me.
Yeah.
Waiting for the Messiah each year. Handel's Messiah.
Right.
Not the other one.
Yeah. But so.
And that's so Terence.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
That is so Terence.
It's the libretto, so the book of it is just brilliant, and that's it. There's just moments that are so brilliant.
I know.
And just like that are really a moment of real truth, heartfelt truth, that then a punchline comes out of it and you laugh. It's really brilliant.
Yeah.
But that kind of is what, in my opinion, is the story of Great Scott. It's a woman who is at the summit of her career, has come home, and in the context of coming home and seeing people that meant something to her, helping to create where she is, has to confront, is it worth it? Is my life, are the sacrifices I've made in my life worthwhile? Which is universal. That's not about opera, that's universal, but it's within the context of opera.
Exactly.
And it's just so beautiful, I think.
You know, what's interesting too, it just occurred to me, I know very few senior artists, people who have retired a long time ago. I really don't know anyone who is bitter or regretful. It's because our lives are, even with the down times, which a little bit like childbirth, you forget. It's so lucky and so much fun and such a incredible journey that it would just be nuts to regret any part of it.
Yeah.
You know.
It's wonderful, wonderful.
Very lucky.
Very lucky. So you've also premiered the works of several other composers. You spent, in addition to it, we all know you as Cherubino. I think everyone knows Flickas.
It's the only role I could really know.
Well, but you've also premiered a lot of other works,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So Passatieri, Conrad Souza, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about some of those experiences. What do you love about new work?
Well, first of all, having the composer right there is very, very, very exciting.
Yeah.
And it's less of a collaboration as in where I was concerned than one would think. It's not like, oh, Jake, can I have a high C there? And no, I can't. It's, you know, you put your hands, you put your trust in their hands. The part I remember, the one I did of Thomas Passatieri was called The Seagull. And my greatest memory of it is I had a wonderful grandmother also named Frederica. And Tom was so dear, he said, well, let's put Granny in the show somehow. So we brought Granny down, and well, we asked her, I could tell she was fingering her pearls and saying, well, I don't know, I think I have bridge on Saturday night. I'm not sure if I can. But anyway, she came down and was a walk-on in one of the scenes in this Russian Dasha.
Love it.
And opening night, my dressing room was knee-deep in roses. And not one of them was for me. They were all for Granny. And so I do remember that. But I remember just loving that production. I loved doing Sousa's Dangerous Liaison because
I remember seeing that on video. It must have been live from, as a PBS production of that, which was just amazing.
Yeah, it was a fun piece. And I'm Catholic educated, Sacred Heart. So for me to play that bad girl was so fantastic. Fun. I just loved it. And the last line of the opera that I got to sing was, her whole life has fallen apart. And she says, I'm hungry.
I love it.
But it was, so that was, I loved that.
Yeah.
It's been very lucky to do that.
So if we think about when a new production even of La Nozze di Figaro comes to you versus Jake Heggie saying, hey, I'm writing a new opera and Winnie Flato, the process is different, clearly, but compare those a little bit. What do you think about, what do you love about both?
You can't beat, the da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, your just heart goes. Yeah. But I would always go with Jake.
Yeah.
First of all, I think as an American singer, I love singing in English, and not just English, but American. And I think Jake has done a great deal to celebrate our American poets and poetesses, and it's important to us as American artists to be a part of that. And I love that, and I love that about Ricky. Singing his words, often that he's written himself, it means an enormous amount. So it would be probably that choice now.
Is it, have you been involved in any of the new work? Have you been involved in any of the process along the way, workshops and things like that?
Yes,
so that's always an interesting thing, to watch it evolve, right?
It is wonderful, and it's very important, because in opera we don't get that chance.
Yeah.
Great Scott it's been cut since Dallas. There have been not scenes, but time has taken, parts of scenes have been taken out to the advantage of the piece.
No surgery, just
no
snips.
surgery, just snips, because that's what happens when you do a Broadway work or do any work. But in opera, it's written in stone from that moment, and it's not an easy thing to do. And it's very generous of Jake to want to do it, and of Terence, and it's made it very much better.
I think it's much tighter.
Much tighter.
With just the smallest of cuts.
Exactly.
It's just,
Yeah.
And it is one of the things that those of you that go to the theater, you know, you will, even here, you go to La Jolla Playhouse or the Globe, there's a preview period, right? So the rehearsals happen, and then you put it on its feet in front of an audience, and it's in the quote-unquote preview period. And then once it opens is when it gets reviewed. In the opera world, in any opera, including La Nozze de Figaro, we rehearse it for a few weeks, and the first night that it's actually up on its feet in front of an audience is when the critics come, which is a lot to ask of any performance, but it's particularly a lot to ask of a new production,
right,
when you're trying to see if things work, right? And so, you know, and that's why if you have reviews of something that seem mixed of the opening, you still have to give it a chance to sort of evolve. And hopefully you have workshops built into the process of new work.
Yeah, and they're very important, and really wonderful process, you know, and I think absolutely necessary for the composer.
Absolutely.
You know, and even then he's not hearing the orchestra, he's hearing just piano, which is different.
But you learn a lot about whether those things work, right? And when they're really sung through, and the timing and the characterization and all of those things.
But it also makes me very aware of what you do, because when you are commissioning a new work, you're really commissioning thin air to a certain degree.
Yeah.
So that takes an enormous amount of expertise of what works, plots, and you have the responsibility to your public, which is very viable.
It's a risky. Everything is risky in the world of opera.
Yeah.
But it's a risky equation in terms, it's economically as well as artistically, because you don't know what it is. And a new production of Lulu could be a risky enterprise, maybe artistically to some degree, economically yes, but you know what it is.
Right.
And when it's
a new piece,
brand new, you're really banking on the combination of the creative team that you know and the subject matter, and thinking this is the correct force to put together. Go. And it is risky, but it's exciting. It's very exciting.
I admire it.
Yeah. I will say that it's so beautiful to see this work in Dallas and here in San Diego, and see the growth, you know, that happens. So everyone's going to have a great time.
Well, and to quote from the opera, there's and now she belongs to the world is one of the quotes from the opera that Sid says, the boyfriend. And now Great Scott belongs to the world.
Absolutely.
You know.
And we do have several representatives of other companies coming to see it here, so hopefully it's going to have some legs. So that's going to guarantee you a lot of work over the next few years. I'm just saying, Winnie is her role.
Winnie is replaceable, but I'm available.
Nonsense.
I'm increasingly available.
So tell us what else is up for you in the near future?
Well, I'm getting another chance to do 3 Decembers, which I'm so happy about, in Hawaii of all places, which ain't bad.
Yeah.
I always told Jake I wanted to do one more crack at it. I didn't think I quite got it to where I wanted it. And recitals, Jake and I have a couple of recitals. And
are you doing 3 Decembers with Hawaii Opera?
Yes.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Very good. That might be something I have to come see, because, you know, Hawaii is not too far away.
That's true.
Right. Yeah.
It's just a
It's
jump.
a plane ride.
It's a plane ride.
Right.
Easy.
Yeah.
Then basically, you know, fundraising.
Yeah.
I am doing a couple of recitals with this wonderful young singer who I've known since she was 14. And she's blind. Her name is Lori Rubin. She's very well known in the Los Angeles area. She's just out of this world. And she started this little company of children's opera, which she's brought to Los Angeles last year. So I'm doing a couple of recitals with her, and we're trying to put together a program that features, we're about 40 years apart in age, you know, that kind of takes advantage of that.
That's wonderful.
So those couple of things here and there, and mainly being nanny for my grandchildren.
That's a good thing too, right?
Oh, it's the best.
That's wonderful.
The best.
You mentioned A Coffin in Egypt. That's a chamber opera, correct?
Yes.
So, as many of you know, we've begun the conversation here in San Diego about the differences and the relative merits of grand opera and chamber opera, and beginning to produce that. What was your experience like performing in a chamber opera?
Fantastic.
3 Decembers is probably a chamber opera
It is
too,
as
right?
well.
Yeah.
It's fantastic because they're in smaller venues, so that there's much greater connection with the public, and it's altogether more intimate. The colors are very different with the orchestra. Very, very different. It's a little bit like being part of a quartet. That you get all this the overtones, but they're different than with
transparent in a way
very
too.
transparent.
Yeah.
But I think it's the accessibility that I really loved. And Coffin in Egypt we did mainly in small halls, and we were like right in front of the public.
As close as this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I think it's terrific, and I think you're planning to do it, aren't
Absolutely,
you?
yeah.
To use the venues of San Diego
Without
to
a
do
doubt.
different pieces.
Yeah.
We've had in the Bay Area terrific success with some young companies that have performed in the oddest places. One of them being an abandoned train station in Oakland where they did Lulu.
Amazing.
And they had to put on 2 performances.
Yeah.
They had to bus the public in because it was such a terrible area. It's all graffiti and it's hideous. And it was fantastic.
Perfect for Lulu, actually.
Perfect for Lulu.
Yeah.
And then this same company did a piece in a swimming pool.
Ah,
I mean,
was that the Orpheus and Eurydice?
The Orpheus and Eurydice.
Yeah, Ricky Ian
Yeah.
Gordon's, right?
Yes.
Is that,
Yep.
yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
So I think you have the right public to do it.
Yeah.
Too. And there seem to be so many wonderful venues.
Well, we have a lot of possibility here, which
And the
is
Globe?
Yeah,
The Globe?
Yeah. Well, the Globe. That's many of you that have heard me talk about that. The Globe
Yeah.
has the most beautiful outdoor theater, and they perform there through mid-September.
Right.
And there still happens to be other times in the year that are nice in San Diego.
Yes.
When it's not being used. And so we've talked with Barry Edelstein, who's the artistic director there, about taking some of that time and producing chamber opera that is based on Shakespeare, because it would be perfect. And you know, there's the
Fantastic.
beautiful setting of Britten's Midsummer Night's Dream,
Midsummer Night's
which
Dream,
just
yes.
is begging to be performed
Yes,
outdoors.
yes.
So we're exploring that in San
Yes.
Diego, but it's good to hear you talk about, as
Oh,
a
yeah.
performer, the potency of that.
Well, I went to see something at the Globe. I went to see Rain at the Globe.
Oh, you did?
And I was just, the theater itself
amazing,
is a dream.
right?
The production is,
Yeah.
it's just wonderful. You know, and I know the Balboa.
Yeah.
So
we have many places
churches
here.
and-
Yeah.
yeah.
And so
Swimming pools, I'm sure.
Exactly. We probably could find an abandoned bus depot too.
Bus depot,
I'm sure there's
yes.
got to be one somewhere with graffiti, right?
Yes.
But so as a company, and as I've been trying to develop the conversation with potential audiences about that potency that's different, the kind of emotional impact that's different between intimacy and grandeur, both being equally valuable but different, but also as a performer, that's evident to you too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know, the magic potion that we have in opera, and why I think it continues at all, is it's the last place where there's no electronic intervention. It's the last place where it's voice to ear. And I find that people crave that more and more. Even, I love jazz, and so a lot of the jazz venues in Oakland and San Francisco, more and more and more are performing acoustically now. People want that connection with an instrument, with a voice, with everything.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Did you happen to see Champion in
Yes.
with Opera Parallel?
It's fantastic.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Just fantastic piece.
So these
Wonderful
are all
piece.
things that we're talking about bringing
Yeah.
to San Diego, and I think we have a heritage here of producing exquisite productions of grand opera, which has built a vocabulary of our audiences of really appreciating the expressive nature of the voice. That's what the hallmark of what we've done is. And what I'm excited about is building on that and saying we can have the same relationship between audience and singer, just in different spaces, right? That's equally as expressive and powerful.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Terrific.
And it's wonderful too, we were talking earlier, that you know voices
Yeah.
from the inside.
Yeah.
That makes an enormous difference. Because singers we're an odd group, aren't we? We really are.
We are.
And, the best description I can think is one of my greatest friends in the world was Evelyn Lear.
Oh.
And Evie, Tom, her husband, Tom Stewart, the great baritone, had a very serious operation at one point. And she told the story that when she was with him in the recovery room, he really didn't know if he was going to have a life of infirmity or how much he was going to live beyond a certain time. The first thing he did was test his voice. It was like,
Still there.
No, it's still there.
That's what a singer is.
That's
yes.
the connection with our voices, which is
We've heard all the stories
somewhat
about
absurd.
those that go into surgery and make sure that the anesthesiologist has clearly identified, so that when they're intubated, so like writing across their forehead in large letters, "I am a singer. Make sure you intubate me with a small tube."
Right.
I mean, there's all the craziness that we.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you for saying that, because it is once a singer, always a singer, right? I imagine
completely.
Winnie in the opera, Winnie was a teacher of music. So that's actually built into your character too. The reason why she is running the company is because music is inside of her, and it's the way she expresses
And
it now.
she's just going to keep going until the,
Maybe you should run an opera company. I think you would be great at it.
I can just see me looking at the first financial statement and thinking, I don't know, is it okay?
Well, it's always good to have good people alongside
Yes.
you. So, absolutely. So, Flicka. How did the name Flicka come about? Tell us a story about Flicka.
Oh, well, my grandmother's Frederica. My mother has a brother, Freddie. My father has a brother, Freddie. And my dad, when he was a little boy, had a pony named Flicka. And with all these Freddies, and my grandmother was Freddie, and all the other Freddies, it got too confusing. So I became Flicka. And Flicka in Swedish means little girl.
Oh,
so
nice.
I've outgrown that quite a bit.
Well, I don't know. It stuck, right?
But it stuck.
That's great.
When I was at the Met, I was always Freddie with all the, especially the stagehands. And if you're at the Metropolitan Opera, the stagehands are your life.
Uh-huh.
They are your best friends in the world.
Yeah.
But then it's, went to Flicka.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, it's been so wonderful having you here, and
Thank you.
Those of you
Thank
that
you for
have your
having me,
tickets, we're looking forward to sharing it with you. If you don't have a ticket yet, please take advantage of our offer. Spread the word to your friends. You're definitely going to want to see this. It's a beautiful work. As I said, heartfelt, funny.
You really will love it.
yeah.
I guarantee you.
And
Really.
it tells our story as Americans. So
It does.
thank you very much.
Thank you.